All right, so today on Stories with Steve is a story of Little Miss Vicious. Okay, so this story goes down on Allerton Avenue, like a lot of my stories going to be. Um, I lived on the block Wallace at the time, right? Uh, everybody lived either on Wallace, Kruger, Bronx Park East. We lived in the neighborhood all along Allerton Avenue. So, and anybody knows when you got older kids on the block and you got younger kids on the block. Sometimes the younger kids want to mimic the older kids, right? So in this case, um, me and my homies, we had beef who we had beef with, right? We had our little top op a neighborhood over or whatever. They didn't like us, yada yada yada. And for some reason, these young kids on my block wanted to form their own little crew that kind of mimicked us to a certain extent. So at this point, you know, they were putting in their little work. Like they the one of the dudes we didn't get along with, his little brother lived a block over, right? And he wasn't really doing nothing important to us, but to the little kids on the block, that was too much. So they started, it started with them getting into words with them, you know. Then the little dudes from Wallace go over there and would take their bikes and stuff like that, and so on and so forth. Um, and then it ended up with the first appearance of Little Miss Vicious. So one of the little guys on the block, Jay, he gets into a verbal argument with one of these kids from Holland or whatever, and they're arguing whatever, and they start fighting. It was a decent little fade between the both of them. Nobody at first was getting the better of the other one, but the little kid from Holland, I guess, had a slightly better squabble. So he's fighting him or whatever, and he starts getting the better of him. Little kids from Wallace, they can't, they're not taking no L's. So now they swarm the kid, and he went from almost winning the fight to like fighting for his life. So now he's getting his ass whipped by like 15 kids. You know, it was crazy. It looked like, like if you threw meat into a piranha bowl and, like they all attacked. So he's getting his ass whooped or whatever. But at this point, it's a little kid fight, little kids fight, whatever. He's getting his ass whooped. Okay. But it was only the little young boys that were doing it. None of the young girls were getting involved until Little Miss Vicious. So Little Miss Vicious, right? She's different from everybody else. She's cold. She's calm. She's serious, right? So the little squabble's going on. Now they rat packing the kid, right? And she's walking over slowly, but has her hand to her side with a cold, calculated look on her face. She walks over to the crowd, and like at this point, you didn't even see the kid anymore. You just seen little feet and hands just flying around, and you assumed the kid from Holland was at the bottom of the barrel there, catching all the hits. She walks over, again, cold look, hand motion, walks off slowly. You couldn't tell what was in her hand. It was like she had like a baby shank, you know, you know. But or something along those lines. Then we hit one of the little kids go, "Oh, yo, he's bleeding." So they move away. He had some kind of cut on his arm. That when they moved away, that gave the kid the time to run. So he ran back to his block, whatever, wherever I guess got bandaged up or whatever because of Little Miss Vicious. But after that, Little Miss Vicious took it upon herself to start like hunting these kids. She didn't need anybody. She went on solo dolo missions, punishing these kids from Holland for no good reason other than their homie is the little brother of some people that the majority of people in Allerton didn't like. Why did she take this beef on for herself? I don't know. But she made it her beef. She made it, like her thing. So she was hunting them down, taking their bikes all by herself. You know, little, short, but serious Dominican girl who meant business. One of the craziest things I seen her do was I'm across the street talking to somebody, right? And one of these little kids from Holland He around the same age as her. He's riding on the block on his little bike. He got like a little Boston Red Sox hat on. Do 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 do. Again, it's little Miss Vicious. She's cold. She's calculated. She's, like a little baby assassin or something. She's crazy. So what she did was, I guess she saw him coming from down the block. She picked up a broomstick and positioned herself between two houses where there was like a little driveway, alleyway type thing. She got herself there, and just as the kid rode by on the bike, just at the right time, she hit the broomstick right into his wheel. I mean, this kid's got to thank God it was garbage day. Because I'm standing across the street, and I'm like, yo, like me and whoever I was talking to, were like, yo, she just hit his bike. This kid went airborne. It looked like E.T. in the movie where he's going up past the moon. He's flying. His bike stayed stationary, but he's airborne. He's flying. He's going. And then, like I said, thank God it was garbage day for him, because he went flying in the air and landed on a big old pile of stinky ass garbage in the summertime, which itself isn't good, but it's a lot better than flying 20 to 30 feet and landing on your face. And then you might look like he was in a car accident or something like that. He lands on the garbage. She goes over there and starts hitting him with the broomstick. He was dazed and amazed and confused and abused. So he looks around, she hits him again. Like, the garbage bag opens, some of the garbage juice goes on him. He's having a terrible time. He was able to roll on the floor and then run away, But then even after this, little Miss Vicious, she continued to go on her calculated mission of putting in work for her little crew, the little Toons, you know what I'm saying? And what they call themselves. And she was like their top, their top rank, top person. The other kids would occasionally get in a fight, take a bike, something along those lines. But like I said, she went on solo dolo missions, looking and hunting and plotting and getting position and, and be very stealthy, To this day, we're not sure whoever became of her. She, like I said, she was the cousin of some of the other little kids on the block. So she was maybe only there once a week, twice a week, maybe being, watched by her aunt or whatever. But she was vicious, little Miss Vicious.